We're sitting here in Miami South Beach, about to shoot into a video on the topic of your joy and the delusion that you have that when you get the things that you want, as far as your reputation or material objects, that somehow, some way, you're gonna find that inner freedom, that inner happiness, that inner joy, that inner light. That lightness that just makes you walk through the world with ease, that fun that you want. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna burst that bubble a little bit and ask you a question. And that question is it possible that maybe those things that you think would make you happy are actually the very things that are holding you back? Is it possible that those things that you're chasing are actually pimping you and putting you in a bizarre, freaky codependent relationship with those things and separating you from the happiness that is your birthright? In this video, sitting here in Miami South Beach, we're gonna ask you that. We're gonna go deep and open your eyes to the core truth of your life.
So let's start by introducing the idea of the ego and how it plays into this. Okay, what is the ego? It's basically that within you, there's a split and you're attached to only being certain parts of yourself and you're resisting other parts. Okay, we all have this split due to the way that we're conditioned. We're attached to this idea of ourselves and all the things that are unacceptable, that we've been told, that's not good, that's not you, you're not gonna survive if you're that. We disown them and we live our lives that way. Now, many of the things that you want here, you're like, I want a Lambo, I want money, I want approval, I want people to look at me right now and just think, wow, that guy's cool, walking down this mall with that swagger, look at everyone. Yeah, he's so cool. We think that that will make us happy, when in reality, a lot of those things are driven by this ego, by this split, by this attachment and resistance. And in reality, you even getting those things just increases that ego. You double down on it and things become a lot heavier. Okay, and this is an easy way to tell if you're run by your ego or not. How heavy is your experience of you? There's a famous saying, ego equals effort. Okay, ego equals effort. So what you just said in the introduction is so key, because we think that succeeding will make us happy, free, and light, but what does it do? It reinforces the heaviness. In reality, it's when that thing you're craving, you're lacking, you're needing is taken away from you, you have a chance, if you take it, to move up and become lighter.
Even break this down as far as your image of when you'd be completely free and loose and having fun and smiling and everything's going great. I want you to imagine right now you're in your best clothes and you stepped out of a Lamborghini and you're walking into the best party in town and all these super cool and beautiful people.
Food's thrown at you.
Yeah, they're walking up to you.
Thrown at you.
Everything's just perfect, right? Just think of your perfect life. Maybe you came from floor seats at the Lakers game. That'd be my perfect life. And so basically, you'd imagine that when you're in that situation, you'd walk around and you're getting all this social reinforcement of how great you are. And at that moment, you'd feel really happy. You'd feel really free. You'd feel like you can act how you want. You'd feel like you can behave from your core and be that person that you want to be. And here's why I mention this. Ultimately, that feeling of freedom and lightness and happiness and joking around and being goofy and just sort of taking in all the moment, that's really what you want more than even just the Lambo itself, right? The Lambo, you're just in a car. In 100 years from now, it's conceivable that a Lamborghini will be like the crappiest car in the world. Because do keep this in mind, this is a subtle point. Human beings, we tend to respond more to relative wealth than absolute wealth. Because the average poor person today has access. Just if you look around here in this mall area, the Lincoln Road Mall here in Miami, the average poor person who has access to many of these facilities has access to more than a king or queen from 200 or 300 years ago. But if there's somebody who's richer, relatively, they have more relative wealth, that poor person might feel more deprived than the king or queen felt, right? It's not absolute wealth, it's relative wealth. So the relative wealth creates sort of a halo effect. And that halo effect actually hypnotizes the mind. And you think that you need that in order to be light and free. Now, as a funny side note too, we're here in Miami. The show that made me really, really realize this was actually Miami Vice. So if you watch Miami Vice, I believe it was shot in the 80s. And what you see, I think it's Don Johnson's the main character. And yeah, and he's wearing this is what's kind of funny about Miami Vice. You might not even know this unless someone tells you. I didn't even know initially. He's driving the best Porsche for the 80s. He's wearing the best suits for the 80s. Like the suits and the glamorous clothes, the designer clothes, was the best stuff. I think he's even dating the most attractive women from the 80s, right? A very different look than today's attractive woman. Very, very different look. And if you watch it now, the car that he's driving, by a way of looking at it, depending how you feel about it, is actually less nice than a car that somebody would drive now. The clothes that he's wearing are less cool than the clothes that somebody now would be wearing, right? So what's funny is that there's a halo effect of that relative wealth, because if you were wearing those same clothes from the 80s from Miami Vice or the car, I mean, to be fair, you might feel super cool because you feel retro and nostalgic. You're like, Miami Vice would be pretty awesome, but there's a relative wealth there. There's a halo effect. And what happens is that you start to think like these things hold the keys to your happiness. They actually, it's like you're in jail and they hold the keys. Like if you don't have those things, you can't experience that lightness, that freedom, that ease of just enjoying life. Because again, we have many wealthy friends who have a lot of these incredibly powerful, superficial things, reputation, material objects, all that different stuff. And their lives are incredibly heavy. I mean, you'll even see people who have a very attractive partner, and you'd think in your mind, if you don't have an attractive partner, like if I just had that I would give anything for that. And little do you realize that even people with attractive partners can be completely miserable. It is a halo effect. And so you're thinking in your mind, if I could just get those keys, if I could just get the keys, suddenly I'd feel joy. I'd feel happy. I would just let loose. I'd start dancing. But what you don't realize that ironically, by the time that you get those things, you're so attached to them that you're spending most of your life just holding on to them, just trying to preserve them. And the ego is in defense mode. What's funny, we call it the competitive versus collaborative frame. And when you're in the collaborative frame having fun, that's actually where the lightness comes from. And so what we see is even in third world countries, a lot of people that are poor will have even for myself and Julien, who have really, really actively studied how to be happy, how to have more fun, all that kind of stuff. There's people in third world countries. I've been to Africa. I've been to South America. I've been to Mexico. There's people down there living in, when it gets too poor, it can be very sad. They're just miserable. Let's be honest, when it's destitute and hopeless. But we've definitely seen it where in these poor areas, like you go down to Rio de Janeiro, people are dancing, laughing. It's so different, the vibe in Rio de Janeiro, than in a Hollywood club where they're sitting there trying to look cool for Chris Brown and Drake. Like looking at their phone, trying to see what their reputation is, trying to figure everything out. You see somebody in Rio, they're just dancing. They look at America, they're like, what is wrong with these people? They have been robbed of their joy. Right. And so you're thinking in your mind that your joy is gonna finally come when you have all this stuff. It is a halo effect of relative wealth. You thinking that you need it, you are being pimped by this. And you don't realize it's often when this stuff is taken away from you that you'll find your greatest happiness.
Yeah, I love that point you said too, where even if you get it, you're just gonna be so worried about losing it. And this is key to reflect on. You think you want that approval. As soon as you get it, you double down on it, you become even more paranoid. Just like in those clubs, those famous people in the clubs, just look at how stiff they are. Those people finally made it to the top, like, all eyes are on me. Now it's like, oh my God, all the eyes are on me, more pressure. And now it's like, did someone look away? Did someone look away? The same with money. You'll see someone like, I need a lot of money, I need a lot of money. And say they actually get that money, are they happier? No, now they're worried about losing it, and they become even more obsessed with the money. Okay, so this, like you said, is a halo effect. This strategy doesn't work. Even reflecting back on your life, at all the things you thought would finally complete you, those are the keys. How many times have you been deceived? Right? Like, think about it. How many times have you been deceived? Make a list.
How much of your life, if you audited, have you spent trying to feed into this pimp dynamic on yourself?
I mean, that's the life for most people. It's like this continuous just deceivement. Like, this'll work, no it didn't. This'll work, no it didn't. This'll work, no it didn't. Why are you so stubborn? Like, look around. Everyone here, I'm gonna buy the new thing. This'll work, that'll work. It won't. Okay, so stop being so naive. That there, even if you get what you want, more ego, more heaviness, it doesn't work. Okay, now on the flip side though, as you said, it's when those things get taken away. whatever you care about the most, whatever you think will save you the most, when it gets taken away, there's an opportunity for true growth. And the most common one, that society is really chasing is that validation, that approval. And that is something that personally ran me for most of my life. I was so obsessed to the point where you could even argue I was obsessed, more than most, where I was always micromanaging everyone's perception.
By the way, it's the irony, because that you were doing so well at it, that makes it so seductive.
So that's the thing. Yeah, I became extremely paranoid. Like, okay, what are people thinking? How can I, do this to skew the perception so they perceive me in this good way, so they perceive me like that? How do I maintain it? And I was actually pretty good, right? Pretty damn good. And I thought it would work, and I've doubled down. Didn't work, never worked, but I was stubborn, eh? And then what happened? That thing got taken away. Not in a subtle way, but in the harshest way. And I've talked about this in many videos, going through that scandal where half the world or more disapproved of me. So you lose that validation completely, just ripped away. The thing literally worse than my worst nightmare. Like, I couldn't even imagine something so bad.
That can happen to us again at any time.
Yeah.
When we say, oh, that thing that happened, as if it's over.
It's never happened again.
100%.
Yeah.
That or more.
Gone. All that validation gone. And I've talked about this too. That was actually the most freeing moment. That worst case scenario was the scenario that changed everything for me and that allowed me to move up and created the opening for a much lighter way of being. On a smaller level, you'll even see it where, say you're really attached to the approval of someone. You might be in a mall like this. You're like, oh, what are people thinking? And you do something that's a little silly, a little out there. Like, you might stop and do a push-up, or just scream really loud, and people are staring like, what? And just because you kind of destroyed that image of cool your ego is hanging onto in your mind, you think it's the end. You're like, oh my God, this is horrible, but it ends up being very freeing. I would even make clients do this sometimes. Like, say they're very stifled. I'm like, hey, do a push-up. Do a push-up. They're like, no, my ego. People will disapprove of me. They'll think I'm stupid. Do it. And as soon as they did it, there was a freedom there. Like, they had a sense of lightness.
And the key here, I want you to really observe what Julien's telling you. I want you to recognize the pimp dynamic that's happening to you in your happiness. One of the worst things in the world that can happen, one of the most disgusting behaviors, is when a pimp comes in and convinces somebody to do all these horrible self-destructive behaviors in exchange for the validation of the pimp. This is a very real thing, a horrible, horrible thing that occurs. And you see that and you think that could never be you. How could that ever be you? Be getting pimped. But notice that what the pimp does is it separates the person who he's taking advantage of from their sense of self, from their sense of validation. And you think this can't happen to you. This is happening. And the way that it's happening is consumer culture is telling you it's only when you get all these things that you can be free. So, for example, like if we just look in here and we see that basically, there's all these nice, beautiful objects in here, right? When you have maybe that exact phone that you see in there, well, what happens? Now you've got the super cool phone. And now when you pull out that phone, little dopamine right there, right? You have that thing that people want. Now, look, they're making a great product. I think that's really fantastic. But at the same time, while they're making great, and I admire that, and I admire great advertising. I think it's all awesome. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's great. I'm not one of these people like just tear it all down and we'll just go back to the cave.
Yes.
I mean,
Who needs a phone?
I mean, maybe that could be cool. I don't know. But that's not my current position anyway. But, I love people creating great products and marketing. That's fine. But you've also got to be aware of how that's distancing you from your happiness and what actual happiness is. See, I think the problem and the way that consumer culture gets away with this is that most people never get to the end of the maze to see that it's a bunch of BS. Yeah. It's only, in many ways, it's when you get all the stuff, you get the reputation, you have all that, and then you're like, wait a minute, it didn't work. And then you see that you have to go to the next level. Now, is that us discouraging you from working on your reputation, from working on your business, from improving yourselves? No, I think we'll even get into that a little bit. Actually, it's very important to work on that stuff. It's amazing. But that being said, here's what I would say to you. Are you doing it from a framework that is distancing you from your happiness? And again, what's the purpose of getting all the stuff? Because you could say it's security, but dude, someday you're gonna die of old age or an accident. If you were gonna live forever, maybe you could justify this, like you're some kind of god who's gonna live forever, so you need all the stuff in the rep because it's never gonna end. But the only truth of life is ultimately it's gonna end. That joy that you feel in the moment, like the happiness, the looseness, the lightness, that is the pay. That is the money. Because that's what the money is meant to lead towards. You know, there's a couple counter examples to this, like paying for self-education or investing in yourself, certain experiences that you could have. But even those, man, I'm telling you, even those experiences, you will forget them. So you've got to be moving towards that inner freedom, that inner happiness, that inner light. That is the pay. But what happens is, even when you get all that stuff, again, defend it. It weighs you down. It adds heaviness. And we're gonna get it. We're not saying that not to get it. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna go deep on that. Because there's actually beautiful reasons to go get it.
Yeah.
But it's not what you think is the main key that we're trying to get to you.
Yeah, it's changing your relationship with it. Instead of viewing it as like, this will complete me, that's the missing piece, it's, I'm actually complete right now, and then I can enjoy it from that place. You change the relationship you have with it. And this is why, by the way, when you don't get it, it can be so freeing, because it creates an opportunity that just shatters that heaviness. So having established that, it does change your view on these so-called negative events. You know, those things that are taken away from you. I really want the money and that nightmare happens, I lose all the money. I really want the validation and that nightmare happens and I lose the validation. And we tend to really self-attack and even attack the world or the universe, like, why is this happening? This is so unfair. Why did I do to deserve it? So on and so forth. But when you view it from this perspective, it's those experiences, the times where it's really taken away, that are your greatest gifts. It's those blessings in disguise. And you could even go, you could say, this far out there in terms of your perspective, saying that it's necessary, and this is in reality the world or the universe helping you. It's the universe's guiding hand, where it's like, hey, this person, they're serious about moving up, they're serious about dropping their ego, they're serious about making that experience of themselves lighter, they're serious about no longer being pimped. Here you go. All your nightmares, here you go. All those things you want, nope, not for you. Time to move up. And that's on you when it's taken away, to really commit to moving up and seeing that opening. It's your ego, if you will, being poked at. That's why it hurts so much. It's like when it's the ultimate form of being triggered, you know, the nightmare, everyone's disapproving. Your ego's under such attack that you could even argue in some situations you don't even have a choice. If you want to keep on living and moving forward, you have to drop it and move up. And without that situation, you would never have been forced to, or put in that situation where, you know, you could finally move up. So don't judge those bad situations in such a negative light. View it through this lens, okay? When something's taken away, when you're in those bubbles and it just bursts, it's actually a great thing. And look for the way up. Always look for the way up.
Yeah, I can say for a fact that my experience of life, I mean, it's nothing like what I thought it would be, right? This experience is not what I was thinking was what was coming to me when I was younger. And there's an ephemeral nature of life. It's a very dreamlike quality. And it can be to the point that you meet that perfect partner and have that perfect moment with your perfect partner, whether that's, you know, a partner for a night, a partner for a long time, whatever it is. And you feel it in the moment, you think you're getting what you want. It's very cool. But what you learn over time is that you forget what that experience was like. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm almost 40, and a lot of this stuff to me is honestly just a blur. I look at all the time and energy and focus I put into it. I look at the great restaurants that I went to or great trips that I took, and I remember them to an extent, and I'm gonna talk later about why I am happy that I did that stuff. I think it's awesome. I'm so happy that I did that stuff. But again, it's like what Julien was saying at the Lincoln Road Mall, it's your relationship to it. Yeah. So when I look at my life, if I were to do an audit, and I want you to put this in context of your own life, if I audit my life and I say, what is the main payoff that I have right now at almost 40 for this big explosion of stuff that I did and thoughts that I had, worries that I had, ego defenses that I had, experiences, the ups, the downs, the left, the right, whatever you want to call it. I look at it and I think, the experiences I mostly forget. The different material objects that I've had them, I've lost them, had them and lost them. It didn't really add anything.
And like you said too, with like relative wealth, something you have now in like a few years, like, meh, it's just nothing, so it loses its importance anyway.
Like the old phone.
Yeah, all those old phones, like I finally have it a year later. Ugh, this old thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those things that have the halo effect, that wasn't what was profound in my life, what was added to it. Although I would say certain knowledges that we've gained, or certain I do think it's important to have a wealth of experience, so I will talk about it, but again, not in the way that you think. But here's what is funny. It is, if anything, what has been subtracted that is actually what has been the biggest benefit to me going through life. It's essentially those delusional bubbles of ego and just things that you're just flat out wrong about. The delusions being popped is actually the main payoff. So having those things removed, losing reputation, losing material objects, having some of your greatest fears realized, and then becoming lighter because you're no longer attached to them, it's actually that inner freedom that comes from subtraction that I think has been the biggest benefit. And not only that, but I would even go deeper, that if I was to list my 10 greatest fears from a decade ago, the 10 biggest bubbles that I just can't have them pop, no matter what, and I were to look at those, some of them that I would say in a video, some of them that, like, to be honest, I just don't want to make a bunch of drama and, like, you know, raise a bunch of stuff, and I'll just, like, kind of let that go. But if I was to name a couple of them, I mean, and again, these are very petty, but, like, I look at myself when I was, say, 22, 23, 24. And when we were first building our public speaking business, our coaching business, and I worked so hard around the clock to get this perfect reputation because we were like nobody, right? 2002, 2003, we're recording this 2019. And I remember for about 2 years just busting every ounce of energy that I had in order to build this reputation. And I remember sitting there being in London, in the UK, walking down Leicester Square and thinking, I did it. I finally did it. We finally built the reputation of what we're doing to such a high level. We have customers coming. People want to learn from us. We can travel. We can do a cool leisure business. And it was right at that time, I remember it was right as I was walking down the street, and then I started reading about this thing called The Game. and the author of The Game is a guy I used to hang out with, Neil Strauss. I remember even bumping into him out there. And I think when I kind of bumped into him in Leicester Square, I was like, yeah, something's definitely happening here. I could see something was going to go on. In that book, you know, it's like a 400-page book, sold a couple million copies, huge book, bestseller. And I remember just watching as the reputation that I built just getting ripped to shreds. And by the way, I never even talked about that or addressed it for well over a decade. Never brought it up. I could say why, maybe another video, why I feel like you don't even need to, like, feed it. But the point is, like, I talk about it now because I think it's valuable. Something that is, it's a teachable moment. And I remember just watching as my reputation, as all these different surface level friends that I had suddenly wouldn't return my phone calls. Suddenly thought that I was, like, you know, some kind of a big jerk or whatever, you know, whatever it was, right? Reading it and going along with that. Now, this is very heavy. I'm gonna get real. I'm gonna get really, really real here, okay? You know, my firstborn son, Vincent, is autistic. And he's pretty hard, you know, he has a lot of challenges to communicate. I think for a lot of people, that's one of the biggest fears you could have, having a child who has something that would cause a disadvantage for him, right? It's one of the biggest fears. But again, if you look at, say, like the book, The Game, okay, so it messed with my rep, whatever, but it was ego. It was literal ego that was getting pulled away. What did I learn from that? I learned, first of all, who my real friends were. I learned, second of all, how fickle a lot of surface level friendships were, so I wouldn't keep feeding into those, and I'd spend more time with the people that really care about me, who I have real bonds with. Yeah. I learned about the fact that I am who I am, no matter what is written in some book, and I had to learn that too. Well, in the same way with my son Vincent, I learned quickly, first of all, that Vincent's experience, he's a happy kid. He's one of the happiest kids you'll ever see. And his experience of life is great. It's more the ego of the parent who's like, when I have my kid, he's gonna be the national spelling bee champion and the captain of the football team, or, you know, whatever it is, right? That's your ego. You know how parents will try to put their kids in some career path that they wanted?
Yeah, they view it like, this is my object, the extension of me. You will be what I want you to be. So
yeah, and Vince is living his life. He's happy. He's happier than a lot of kids that don't have the disadvantage that he has. He's been raised in such a positive environment. So again, just seeing that. Or for me, going bald. I remember when I was in my mid-20s, early 20s, realizing I'm gonna go bald. And that really freaked me out with so many insecurities that I was dealing with. I was like, God, why have you forsaken me to also be bald? Yeah. Half of what motivated me to work on my social skills was I thought that I had to be married before I went bald, or I would never be able to meet somebody. And it terrified me. But what going bald did for me was it made me realize life is short. You have to enjoy the experience. I think that if I had this like full bristling head of hair, because I still feel so young, I have more energy than ever, honestly, I probably wouldn't realize if I wasn't going bald, this is gonna end.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't work as hard. I wouldn't know what's as important. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous. Oh, going bald. Look, at my age, at almost 40, going bald's not a big deal. But to be honest, at 24, I thought I had like 2 years left. You know, and it was scary. But anybody who's bald watching this knows it's all in your head. No one cares but you. And I've had a number of other things happen. I mean, a lot. And these are pretty heavy things. So again, it's in many ways like a lot of my, honestly, my greatest fears. I mean, I'm really scratching the surface here. I'm talking a lot of really bad ones where it all gets taken away. It's those subtractions, not the additions, but the subtractions that woke me up and let me see my life more clearly. I would ask you, what have been your subtractions? What has been taken away from you that was far more valuable to your experience of life and to your joy and freedom than any kind of material benefit you could get or reputational benefit?
Yeah.
The truth of life is that what you'll carry with you is the knowledge that you gain through whatever reputational loss you have, through whatever loss of material possessions that you have. And you see people, many celebrities, who get so much in their favor and they turn to hard drugs because they don't go through that process and the weight of it is too heavy to bear.
Yeah.
So what we'd encourage you to do is look at those people that are the most free and having the most fun and ask you, what price tag can you put on that? In my view, that is priceless. That is living. It's about authenticity. The actual authentic experience of life that you're getting through that. Audit yourself and ask yourself, where is it that these subtractions, even as painful as it was, burned away that which is not true and gave you a better life?
Yeah. There's a saying I love, which is, if you have big goals, life will test you to make sure you're serious, or to see how serious you are. So if those biggest fears, you know, that you have, like they're coming true and all these things are being taken away from you, it's very easy to get, like I said before, you get negative, you get sad, you get depressed, you start losing hope. But you can also view it as life realized. You got big goals, you have big plans, and it's testing you to make sure you're serious, and it's helping you to realize those lessons. And here's the other thing too, kind of building on that audit. Look at your life and look at those things that were taken away and ask yourself, did you learn the lesson? Did you move up? Because if you didn't, here's the other kicker, life will find a way to come back with a bigger bubble and a bigger burst. If you didn't learn it with the small one, it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger until you have no choice but to let go of that heaviness, to let go of that part of your ego and move up. So did you learn the lesson? Look at those life experiences. Look at your fears, the ones that came true. Did you just ignore it and perhaps, like you said, medicated yourself just to get through it and doubled down on the ego? Or did you really learn from it and take that opportunity to grow? And I want to bring it back to what you were saying before too, where it doesn't mean that you should go and just, you know, live on an island with nothing. Like, oh, you know what, I realized that. I just need to take everything away from me and be this isolated monk. No, okay? You're here, you're born to be part of this world. You're born to experience all the things in this world, including perhaps a cell phone, okay? There's a saying which I want you to actually write down here, which is, you were not born to be idle. No one was born to be idle. If that were the case, you would be dead, okay? You're not here to just be like, I'm just gonna let go completely and do nothing. No, you're here to experience the world, but coming from a different place. And here's the beauty of it. It's when you let go of it, that's when you're finally able to truly experience and enjoy this material thing that is life, that is the world, including even our own emotions. You know, we become so attached to feeling a certain way, we resist feeling another way, and that's also the ego, that we never truly allow ourselves to feel. Like the relationship we have with our emotions is saturated. The relationship we have with things, with food, with money, with, you know, validation, with approval, with friends, with relationships, it's all saturated until you let go of that attachment and everything changes. And then you start seeing people for who they truly are. You know, you start seeing the world for what it truly is. And one example that comes to mind that really illustrates how it all changes when that relationship changes is a relationship. Like say you have a partner. Okay, most people view their partner not as a human, but as this again, part of their ego. This is my partner, it now completes me, it makes more of me, and you don't even see them as a person, and what you experience isn't really love, it's just pure attachment. And when you either proactively start letting go of that attachment through, say, releases or transformation mastery or any teachings like that, until you do that, you will not see them as a human and it won't be love. Or you might have to go through the harder way of it being removed to really trigger that for you to finally let go and then meet someone new and see them for who they truly are.
You know, and the big thing here is that, are you gonna get bitter or better?
Yep.
Bitter or better? And what that means is, when the ego is getting messed with, when the structure of the ego is being tinkered with, are you going to make a new ego as a victim? The ego loves being a victim. Yeah. It creates separation. It creates that unique form-based identity as the biggest victim. And that biggest victim identity separates you. It makes you greater than the others. You're the bigger victim. The person who has been victimized more. Right. So, and that's why we say,
in your victimhood.
Are you going to get bitter or better? Because that temptation to get bitter and to emphasize the separateness is always there. To get better, what that means is that you use it as an erosion from the ego, and it means that you recognize what you were attached to, you recognize the heaviness of it, and you move into the light. You choose to move up into more real joy. See, what happens with the material possession stuff or the reputation stuff is that it becomes a surrogate for really living. It's a way to ignore the larger truths of life. The fact that you're gonna die someday. The fact that life doesn't maybe have that one set purpose, right? Having more followers on Instagram or a social media network, it gives you a sense of purpose. It takes the complexity of life and simplifies it down to one thing. And we all want that because we all deal with that existential crisis of what life is all about. In my mind, when I see somebody just laughing and joyful, or even to be real, even in pain, but if it's a pain that is a part of life, that creates depth, that to me is what we're here for, to live life fully, rather than to hide from that larger truth of the fact that the galaxy is so big. We don't know what we're doing here. Where's the aliens? Why haven't the aliens come visited yet? What is all this sand, this ocean? As we look to the ocean here, we can't even see what's going on. The birds everywhere, the seaweed right here, growing, expanding, the sand. What's in the sand? Where did the sand come from? The oxygen, breathing it in. And all this simulation, and yet we don't even know what to make of it exactly, do we? It's confusing, it's overwhelming. So we focus and simplify that into reputation, possession, things that we think will make life easier. Finally, if I'm in that Lambo, getting out of it in my suit, that's the moment. That's the epicness. And yet it actually makes things heavier. You're in that competitive frame versus collaborative frame, viewing yourself as separate from the world. And so what you have to do again is audit and look at your life and say, what is real about your life? And what we've noticed, and we've had discussions, now there's things that we know for a fact, or a fact, and then there's things which we kind of know, things that are more speculative in nature. And one of the things that we speculate, but that we don't really know, again though, it's just something we truly speculate, is it's very possible that when you have made a commitment to your inner growth, some people will call it spiritual growth, spiritual evolution. Some people would just say improving your inner game. Some people would just say getting more grounded to life, being more in touch with life. I don't care what you call it. I don't want to get hung up on the jargon of it, whatever that is. But when you have that true calling, that's when these incidents of pain will begin to come into your life. Whereas somebody who doesn't have that calling, maybe the reason that they're here is simply to live a more surface level life. I look at some people that had a very, kind of like a happy but surface level life, but it's pretty interesting. They haven't really, and I don't want to judge them or their experience. I don't know their experience. There could be a lot of stuff they don't even talk about, right? Maybe they don't make a living talking about the bad shit they talk about like we do, right? So that being the case, and so you don't know somebody for sure. You can't judge. But there's definitely at least some people who do go through this sort of surface level experience of life, and I'd recommend you research them. Maybe a king from the Middle East or something like that. And look at their life and ask yourself, as much good stuff as they have, and as much as it'd be cool to trade lives for a day, or maybe in a year, would you actually want to live in their skin? Would you want to live their emotions? Do you believe in their authenticity of life and what they're experiencing? I would ask you that. So realize that when you make that calling for real growth, sometimes you don't get what you want, which is, I just want to be more free and happy and get all the stuff. I want to get all this stuff and be super cool and be super free. That's totally going to happen. It's just all my ducks in a row and I'm happy and I'm free. That's right. That's going to fucking happen. I'll be happy when. And instead what you just say is, look, what realistically would it take to shake me out of my daze? What realistically would it take for me to have this inner growth that I want? Well, guess what? When you call upon that, when you say, God, bring that into my life, or I just hope I get that. I don't care how you process things. But when you make that calling, be aware. You're probably gonna get what you asked. But the way of getting there may be very, very different than what you think, because you're probably gonna be tested to see, do you really want that? And at that point, by the way, when you call that test, that's some pretty epic stuff, because you might go into victim, because you can't take the realness of what it shows you. The realness is too much, and then you just go into victim. You go into a living hell. But if you can take the realness of it and make that hard moment re-engage you with what is real, at that point your life can go to an entirely different level. Maybe not from that one reputation or possession, but it goes to a different level in terms of how you experience it and your authenticity of life.
I love when you said it wakes you up to reality, because that's what it really does. It realigns you with those universal truths. What is life? Is anything permanent in life? No. Everything will end. Everything is constantly in motion. Everything is constantly changing. When you're trying to find yourself and just keep it there, whether, as an example, it's a partner. You're like, I just have my partner. The partner's not me. I'm going to keep my partner like this, and it's going to stay like this. You're going against the flow of life. You're going against that law of impermanence. The same with death. The fact that we're all going to die. That is a truth, and it's something you must come to terms with. Now, what do we do to fight it? What does the ego do? I'm never gonna die.
It's funny too, at the funerals, they don't even let you see a dead body. Everything in society is designed to make you live in this weird world to ignore life.
Yeah, don't think about death. The ego protect. The ego will live forever. And that's what we believe. So we try to find ourselves in the physical. We try to find ourselves in even our partner, in how much money we have, in our reputation, and how much approval, thinking that we may finally reach a point where I've accumulated enough. I will never die. I will survive forever. No, you're going to die. And reflecting on these universal laws can help tremendously too. Even the body. What is life? It's this journey. It's this ride. You're born with nothing, and when you die, you can't take any of this with you, including the body. What is the body? It's the ride. If you go to a roller coaster park, this is it. You get into your body, it's like, here you go. Off you go on the ride that is life. And at the end, you gotta get up, right? You're not gonna stay there, so you return the body. Everything here is borrowed. And ultimately, what are you left with? The lessons and experiences, right? You can't take all these things. So you trying to find yourself and accumulating I am the things goes against life. So realign yourself with reality. And once more, are you ready to see it? Are you ready to accept your own mortality? Are you ready to accept that everything changes? There are different phases, and stop trying to make life stay this one way.
The relationship one, to me, is one of the most obvious and ultimate ones that almost anybody will experience, because you will have relationship after relationship. And in many cases, not all, but in many, as long as you need that relationship to know who you are, it's like the butterfly, you're squishing it. It's only when you get to that point that you'd be you without it. And then all of a sudden, maintaining a relationship becomes way easier. Yeah. And I'm talking wildly easier. So that example there, you could extrapolate that, because every single time you've had a relationship and you lost it and it hurt you, later you'll realize, wow, I'm so glad that I lost that, because I wouldn't even know who I am.
And
I wouldn't even know who I am.
And it becomes a real relationship. Until you reach that point, you could call it a fake relationship. Okay, you're not viewing them for who they are. You're viewing them as this thing that completes you, this thing that is a part of you, and every single time, unconsciously, there will be manipulation going on beneath the surface, on your end and on your partner's end. Why? Because if it's you complete me and I complete you, you don't want to lose that person. So you're going to try to hang on to them, and it's not love, once more, it's attachment, it's need, it's craving. And when you're fine with, you know what, I'm not going to try to find myself in you. I'm complete, you are complete, and there's a certain synergy that happens between the two. That is love. That is a real relationship.
I mean, the same even happens in a night of socializing. When you just go out and have fun, you're not trying to find yourself in the positive reactions. That's the ultimate night of socializing. You'll see that if you just go talk to everybody at some venue in a given night. When you're above it, your ego isn't in it, and you're experiencing that joy, the realness of it, that's when it kicks ass.
Yeah. Now, I also do want to touch on the fact that there are physical lessons, okay? The goal here is not to hear this, be like, you know what, you guys are right. All this bad stuff.
Let it all go to crap.
Yeah, it's all happening, all this bad stuff. It's for my growth. You know what? More bad stuff. Let me stop brushing my teeth. Let me stop paying the bills, stop working. Let me just stop it all, and let it go to shit. Because you know what? The more bad stuff happens, the more there's an opportunity to get better and not bitter. So bring it on. I'm going to even proactively go and find bad stuff.
I had to brush my teeth. When my teeth rot out, I won't be attached to them.
Yeah, it's like, no. Okay, and again, this is another trap. It's like, I heard about your game crisis or your media crisis. I need my own crisis. I'm gonna go create it. How do I create a life crisis? Trust me.
It'll come.
It'll find you.
You'll be fine.
Okay, and learn lessons from the physical. For example, if you do a mistake and you lose money, it doesn't mean keep repeating the same mistake. Learn from it. Okay, learn from it on a spiritual level, but also on a physical level. It's a foot in both, and learn it in a way where you are getting better, not bitter. Because you can also learn it, and you might talk to people, they're like, you know what, I did learn that, and I'm never gonna trust anyone. You can never even be in a relationship because there's always the chance of them leaving you. I made that mistake once. I was in a relationship and they left me, so screw that. You can't trust anyone, no relationships.
What did I learn? People are crap. What a great lesson. Good thing I learned that.
I realign myself with reality. They're all crap. No, okay? Learn it while moving up, getting better, not bitter.
Okay, so we just came off the beach, and as we're walking back, we realized there's also something that's a secondary aspect of what we taught you here, because I think if we don't add this to it, your life could get very, very bad by misinterpreting some of the advice that we just gave. In life, in our opinion, again, this is getting into the speculative aspect, but this is just sort of our experience sharing our ideas with you about this in your life. You have the spiritual side of life, and you have the physical side of life. So really, in your life, you want to have one foot in your essence or spiritual, that inner alignment, whatever you want to call it, and another foot in your physical experience of life. Because if you think about it, why did you come here to this earth? You came here also to experience the physical. So as you're going through some of these, as we called it, subtractions, you have a great opportunity to grow internally, to elevate yourself and to enjoy life more, to see the reality of it. But at the same time, while that's happening, you don't want to just say to yourself, you know what, I want my life to get worse and worse and worse. Because when I have nothing and I'm just living on the street, when I'm living on this bench here in front of the Colony Hotel in Miami, that's when I really start living, just going through the garbage dumpster for food, looking at the rat dead in the eye and saying, we're down here in it, just eating this garbage together. This is real life. Okay, that's not what life is about. See, in this time that you have a subtraction, on one level, you don't want to make an ego about being a bigger victim. You want to move up and get connected to life. But as you're getting more connected to life, there's also the physical lesson. When you make a mistake, that mistake is not usually made in isolation. That mistake could be caused because maybe you miss a little bit of sleep. When you miss a little bit of sleep, you ate some fast food, which made you kind of derpy. When you're kind of derpy, maybe you got mad at somebody, treated them bad, and created drama there, maybe fractured a relationship. As you fractured that relationship and lost some support, maybe you couldn't accomplish another goal. When you didn't accomplish another goal, maybe what happened is your life got even messier and messier and messier and messier. So really in life, you've got to understand your willpower and feed that willpower, understand your competence, your resources, the patterns that you're in, and you've got to take full responsibility for this. So when that negative incident happens, when you have that subtraction, it can connect you more to life. but it also should be something where you're getting a deeper and deeper understanding of the laws of the physical universe. And there's a lot of universal laws about the right way and the wrong way to live life. And the more that you can observe those, you could argue that those are also very spiritual, because you want to align to your higher power and say to yourself, what are the behaviors that I can take that show that I'm in submission to what is a good life, and grow in terms of your submission to living life in the right way?
I mean, this really goes hand in hand with a tour I just finished. So I was in Europe for a month, and I had a new team, a new camera team, and it always takes a little while to get used to, you know, the dynamics, the setup, the systems, and for some reason, it just took a little longer here, and I'd lose shot after shot after shot. And I remember, I mean, there's nothing worse than like going into, say, a seminar, just giving it your all, you know, and in a way becoming even a little attached to it, like, oh, this is going to be great, I need it to go great, and then you end it and you're like, oh, the shot's lost. And that hit. And you can still catch yourself like, oh man, you know, this is a disproportionate response to reality. I'm trying to find myself in this, you know, so it gives you that lesson of becoming a little bit more zen, letting go of that need once more, changing your relationship with it. And it was one of the tours where I've grown the most. And at the same time, though, linking it to those physical lessons, it does mean, okay, getting ahead on staff, you know, getting rid of certain people, getting more qualified people, refining the systems, getting backup upon backup instead of just, oh, it'll just magically fix itself. So it's always both. Okay, take care of the problem, address it in the physical world, and also take the inner lesson. There's always a lesson in both.
I think that's a very powerful topic, and we'll do other videos on that topic, but the idea of the spiritual aspect of your life and realizing the universal principles of how the world works and aligning to them to live a better life and to create more upward spirals. And to me, that's where the real sweet spot is, because your life is getting better and better externally, but you're also having those more impactful moments where maybe you do have a subtraction, so that when things are going well, you can still experience the joy of it. You can feel the realness of life, but also align with those greater life purposes. And to me, when you're aligned to the laws of the physical universe and you work within them, and then you correspond that with you also not being attached to it, and you fix your relationship to it so that you can grow and have that subjective experience of life, that's where something can be accomplished as true success, a deep, powerful success, and something that in my mind is very, very commendable. So anyway, it was really fun actually being out here in Miami. It's a beautiful place that we come every year. So much fun to reconnect here in this kind of shady day out on the beach, out in the Lincoln Mall. Just kind of wrapping up here. We're just over the hill from the beach right here. Hope that you enjoyed sharing in this moment here. We try to shoot in these environments to make the realness of it. That's why we shoot out here, to make it real for you, to feel those elements. And I hope that you'll carry this with you in your heart, in your memory, forever and ever. We built this for you. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being part of the vid, and we'll see you soon. Peace.